We've got 3 brand new Ascendancy classes coming in Path of Exile Affliction League, and I can't be more excited. Because not only are they super cool, but they also stack with your normal Ascendancies. That's right, why not have both? A normal Ascendancy and a Wildwood Ascendancy. A quick reminder, though, that if you want to see more Path of Exile content or keep up to date on all the Affliction news, biggest winners and losers of the skill gem changes, and much, much more, do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and for now, let's just jump into things. Starting with a very quick primer on what Affliction League is. To start off, you get to enter the Viridian Wildwood within your map. You should do this early because, don't worry, there's a good reason, but later on in your map, less monsters and less rewards. So hop into it. Then you get a synthesis-ish style thing, or maybe delvish style thing, where you're exploring an area. The wisps power your exploration and burn away affliction. Once you run out of wisp juice, then unfortunately you're done. Along the way, you're going to encounter monsters or maybe make a few friends. After you leave, the wisps infect the monsters in the map, giving a bunch of loot bonuses and making them scarier. This is why you want to do it near the start, but luckily it already spawns near the start. Anyway, enough of that boring stuff about the league mechanic. Let's talk about the Wildwood Ascendancies. Starting with Warden of the Maji. This Ascendancy seems to be more or less oriented around attack builds. You get Oath of the Maji. Defenses from equipped body armor are doubled if it has no socketed gems. Or plus 50% to all elemental resistances if you have a helmet with no socketed gems. 25% increased maximum life if you have equipped gloves with no socketed gems, and 30% increased movement speed if you have equipped boots with no socketed gems. So Kaum's Heart and Kaum's Roots have never been more enticing. But at the same time, giving up sockets is a pretty big ask, and some of these bonuses are probably not actually worth it. Though 50% to all elemental resistances for giving up gems socketed in your helmet is really interesting to me, because that's a lot of resistances. It means that you can use your suffixes on gear for other things, like damage or defenses. Mostly just damage though, because it's pretty hard to get defensive suffixes. Then we have the Wildwood Blessing, which grants a level 20 Barkskin skill. Barkskin, which was previewed a little bit later in the reveal, is a defensive ability. Bark spreads across your skin, increasing your armor rating. But then, as enemies attack you, they chip away at your defenses, removing the armor bonus and replacing it with an evasion bonus. Over time, the bark will regrow, and the bonus swaps once more. It doesn't seem to quite be a guard skill, instead it's more of a defensive buff skill similar to Arctic armor, and overall the concept is pretty cool. Evasion after you've already taken a few hits to avoid further consecutive hits, and armor to blunt the initial blows. I really like this concept, and even if Affliction League doesn't go core, I'd love to see this go core as a guard skill, because I think the concept would really serve evasion builds or evasion armor builds very, very well. We've also got Lesson of the Seasons, 10% chance to avoid non-damaging ailments per bark below maximum, and 10% reduced duration of damaging ailments on you per bark. So this is probably something that modifies the behavior of bark, which means you have bark charges. You'll gain, let's just say, 10 bark charges, one gets chipped away when you attack, and your armor and evasion bonuses flip-flop based on the number of charges or charges missing. Having ailment avoidance per bark seems somewhat interesting, but probably not very impactful, so I'd give this one a pass, because there's way cooler options out there. Like Coated Blade, you can apply tinctures to your equipped weapons. Tinctures are a new special type of equipment that seems straight out of Witcher. Next, we're going to be meditating for damage bonuses, and I guess we do already kind of chug. Wait a minute. Are Exiles just Witchers? Is that what we're going with? Alright, Exiles are just Witchers. You know what? I'm here for it. Winds are howling. So you get Coated Blade, where you can put tinctures on your weapons. These essentially seem to be sanctified relics. And for example, you have the Ashbark Tincture of the Hair. All damage can ignite, 4% chance to gain Onslaught for 10 seconds on killing blow, unmodifiable. Think of these as tradable sanctified relics, which means they're sanctified relics that don't suck. And it's going to lead to a lot of really interesting stuff. Now, a tincture does take up a potion slot, so there is an opportunity cost here. But it's a permanent bonus, and you technically only need one, though you can put on as many as you want. Just remember that you'll have to activate them to swap the effect because you can only have one tincture active at a given time. There are potentially reasons to have multiple tinctures replacing flasks. For example, Nature's Concoction. Flasks adjacent to applied tincture gain 3 charges when you hit an enemy with a weapon, no more than once every second, which is still 3 charges a second, and that's pretty darn good. That means permanent flask uptime on most flasks, and flasks adjacent to applied tinctures have 30% increased effect when used if you've hit an enemy with a weapon recently. So Nature's Concoction is basically just Pathfinder on a stick that you can have on any ascendancy. We've also got Enduring Suffusion. Tinctures applied to you have 75% increased effect per empty flask slot. So a kind of trader-esque thing going on, but I don't think I'd be taking that one personally. Next up, Detect Evil. Hits against your marked enemies cannot be blocked or suppressed. This is really nice if you're going to do a lot of expedition. There's annoying guys that block, and I'm sure there's some monster out there that's going to suppress your damage, or at least attempt to, so negating that's good as well. Also, rare and unique enemies within 120 meters have minimap icons, so you can see where your foes are. It might even give you really cool heat or x-ray vision that lets you see through walls, though no promises. Next up, we have an Ascendancy for Disciples of the Dark Arts, Warlock of the Mists. And I'm just going to start with the best thing here, the Warlock Curses. This offers you a choice between 3 powerful curse skills. Black Mass, which grants level 20 Affliction, a curse which puts a physical degeneration effect on your minions and causes them to explode when they die. This is going to make minion autobombing really darn easy, because you can just curse all of your minions and cause them to go boom. I don't know if this stacks with other things, like let's just say the Falling Zombie alt quality gem that I'll talk about in a future video. I guess they're technically transfigured gems now, but alt quality also makes sense, and it kind of sticks, and zombie fall flat is a pretty funny meme. But if you aren't going to play a minion autobomber or you don't have minions, there's no real point in taking Black Mass. Instead, you might want to pick up Creeping Lobotomy, which gives a level 20 Pacify skill, a curse which prevents the cursed enemies from dealing damage during the latter half of the effect. So you could either have a really short duration, where it's constantly cycling, they do damage, they don't do damage, or a really long duration where it takes a little bit to ramp up, but then the boss can't do damage and you just get to stand still and nuke it. Last up, and most excitingly, Choir of the Damned, which gives level 20 Penance Mark, a special mark which causes hostile phantasms to be spawned when you hit a marked enemy. They will attack you and can be used, or I guess in this case killed, to trigger both on-hit and on-kill effects. So if you ever wanted to play a build like a Worm Blaster, but you really don't want to play a Worm Blaster, Choir of the Damned is going to be your secondary Ascendancy node of choice. Because this way, you get to hit a boss, spawn these phantasms, kill them, and trigger on-kill effects. Now I don't know how much health they'll have, so I don't know if you're going to be able to use them to trigger all sorts of explodey effects to nuke the boss, but there's plenty of things that are really powerful in PoE and just didn't quite work because you couldn't reliably trigger on kill. And you can even enhance this with Foul Pact to make those effects even better, like having the Phantasms have a 50% chance to grant increased flask charges and a 50% chance to grant Val Souls. Also, you can enhance your Affliction-affected minions to give them Onslaught, and enemies pacified by you take 20% increased damage, which means that Creeping Lobotomy is a pretty darn powerful curse in and of its own right. If we just discard the enemies not dealing damage part, it's 20% increased damage taken, which is about on par with a lot of the weaker curses, and can definitely be picked up as a secondary or tertiary curse for your build. But maybe you don't want to be a master of hexes. Next up, we have a collection of nodes which would honestly be a lot more interesting if they were in a slightly different order, because it starts with Sanguimancy. Skills cost life instead of mana, skills reserve life instead of mana, removes all mana, 30% increased life reservation efficiency of skills. So it's kind of a blood magic we have at home. And if it was just this, you would never take it, because blood magic is basically just the same thing but better. However, it's tied to 2 very interesting options: Crimson Power and Cannibalized Faith. Crimson Power removes all energy shield. You gain maximum life instead of maximum energy shield from equipped armor items, and -6 maximum life per level, so -600 base life at level 100. But you can put on energy shield gear to make up a lot of that. The thing that came to mind to me personally is, does this work with Ivory Tower? I'd guess not. I'm assuming it's only the implicit energy shield, but who knows? And then you have Cannibalized Faith, where spells you cast yourself gain added physical damage equal to 20% of a life cost, which might be interesting for Reap, but because it's locked behind Sanguimancy, I don't know if it's actually that good, despite Reap being one of the big winners of the skill gem changes. I guess if there's a follow-up video where I explore Reap, I'll talk about it more, and if not, oh well, it probably wasn't that good. Then we have Blood Hunt, which grants a level 20 Ravenous skill. Once you have the Ravenous skill, you can use it to mouse over a corpse, and Ravenous will identify the type of monster. Then use Ravenous to consume the corpse and gain a damage bonus against that type of enemy. You can only have one damage bonus at a time, and consuming another corpse will swap the bonus. Some monsters, like bosses, have the Eldritch subtype, which doesn't naturally occur in corpses, so you'll need to purchase special corpses from the Breaker of Oaths for Eldritch monsters. And if you're feeling a little unethical, you can even become a local corpse merchant and sell these to enterprising exiles. Because here's the fun thing. You can specter these corpses, and one of the corpses teased that you can specter is Guardian of the Hydra, so I'd expect all the Guardians are there, and who knows, maybe there's going to be some other random bosses as well. Unfortunately, these monsters cannot be desecrated, so if your specter dies, you'll need another corpse from a Breaker of Oaths or a helpful corpsemonger. And then last up we have the Wildwood Primalist, which is basically just what a Scion Ascendancy should be. First up, the boring stuff. Howl of the Wolf. Your war cries attempt to shake extra items from corpses, and they open chests. I mean, I guess this is neat, as you can war cry in a giant pack of monsters and get extra loot. However, this means you can't destroy enemy corpses, and you have to have a war cry, and you have to stop to actually use it. So I don't think it's honestly that good. Then there's Might of a Bear, 5% increased character size. This is a buff, which has 20 inventory slots, aka about 33% more inventory space. While not super useful, it's not bad either, and if you don't have a war cry, you might as well use this. If you have a war cry, I guess Howl of a Wolf isn't the worst thing. But really, if you're playing a Wildwood Primalist, you're playing it for the charm sockets. You can place 3 charms in these sockets to build your own custom ascendancy. Each charm is aligned to an attribute, so you have intelligence-aligned charms, strength-aligned charms, and dexterity-aligned charms. Intelligence-aligned charms roll ascendancy effects from the Templar, Witch, and Shadow ascendancies. Strength-aligned charms roll from the Duelist, Marauder, and Templar, and dexterity roll from Shadow, Ranger, and Duelist. I don't know if the Scion will or won't appear on charms. This wasn't included in the reveal stream, but I suspect she won't. Also in the Q&A after, it was clarified that not all ascendancy effects appear on charms, and some have their potency reduced. But, for example, if you only have a 14% chance for enemies to explode with the Occultist's Corvine charm of the Inquisitor, well, if you stack 3 of them, well, now you're up to a cool 42% chance. Again, these seem like sanctified relics, but actually good, since they're fully tradable and unmodifiable. So a really quick takeaway is every time you go into the Wildwood, if you encounter one of the Azmeri Wanderers, you should absolutely check their inventory, see what cool stuff they have, and what you might be able to put up for sale, because it could be that another exile wants your trash. And while this video has so far focused on just the Wildwood Ascendancies, I do plan to talk about Affliction League as a whole, Return of Ultimatum, Transfigured Gems, and much more in upcoming videos. So again, a quick reminder to get subscribed if you're interested in any of that, and leave a like while you're down there. But now I'm curious, what build do you think you're going to be playing in Path of Exile Affliction League, and which of the Ascendancies are you going to go for? Worst case, I guess if you're feeling indecisive, you can always swap between them. The Ascendancy nodes are unlocked by completing quests, with the first 3 being relatively easy and probably obtained during the acts. Unfortunately, the 4th is a little bit more difficult and requires that you defeat the King in the Mists. If you want to swap between them, you can pretty much at any time. Just keep in mind that if you haven't done the quests for the other Wanderers, you'll need to unlock those before you actually benefit from the Ascendancy nodes. Now personally, I think they're all really cool, but I'm probably going to go Warlock of the Mists if I'm a spellcaster, and then Warden of the Maji if I'm an attack build. Those seem like the strongest league start options, and I can always swap to something else later, say after I get some cool charms. Though I'm really curious what you'd pick as well. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. With that said, if you're looking for something else to watch, you can catch my full reaction to the reveal stream. I'll link that up in the card down below. Thanks for watching. A special thanks to my patrons and channel members for their continued support. Link to that's also below, along with the link over to Maxwell GG, where you can learn more about this and many other topics. With that said, that's all for me today. I'm very excited for Affliction League, happy to share all this stuff, and I hope to talk about more soon, especially after getting some information on transfigured gems.